Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Dr. Willie Miles. I'm the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation located here in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're just really excited to be here this week with you all again. I don't take it for granted for you all being here because you could be watching one of those television programs or doing something that you enjoy more. But I'm hoping that you don't enjoy doing other things more than you enjoy being with us, or you would not be here, I'm sure. But what I want to do while we're waiting for our co-host to come on is to talk about some things that are happening in Atlanta. I do want to share that Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation is a 501c3 non-for-profit organization, for those of you who already know that. And we're based in Atlanta, and our goal really is to make children our priorities, make children our priority. And we've been doing that for going on 2 years now. It's kind of amazing. When we started a couple of years ago, COVID has just come in, and we had planned this elaborate launching of the organization, and we had the facility and ready to let the world know that we're all around here and we're ready to get started. However, of course, COVID kind of squashed that very, very quickly, and we had to change how we do business. So we are considered a virtual organization at this point, and I'm sure we're going to be that for a while. It just makes sense. We can reach more people, and not only can we reach more people, but we can provide other services, more services for people who may need those services. Just a little information about Atlanta. Of course, the weather's getting much warmer. We were having snow one day, and then as Southerners say, shirt tail weather. We had the short sleeve shirts on, and I don't know what's happening. I'm just being very fluid and just going with the flow. Just going with the flow. But the weather is doing well here. And I checked with Jackie earlier today, and in South Florida, things are going well there. I do want to sort of like give you a little history of Black History Month for those of you who are coming on who may not know what it's all about. But before I want to get into that, I want to share that I don't think that these are costumes that we wear, and some people refer to them as costumes. No, it's just African attire and African garb, and I love wearing it. And I don't only wear it during Black History Month; I wear it and for me, it's not just Black History Month. It is um, being Africans all the time, being Africans all the time. Hey, Jackie, welcome on.
Good evening, Dr. Mouse. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Jack, I think you're trying to up me because you're always late. And people might come in and place fashion when you're late. You gotta stop that foolishness. You gotta be on time. Don't be trying to. I gotta give you a special attention for you to come on in. Now you gotta
You
stop.
need to stop, okay?
Now,
I'm leaving work and I'm
fussing
rushing
on
to
Black
get
History
here.
Month. I'm fussing on Black History Month. We gotta stop this CP time. You gotta be here on time. We gotta be on
Dr.
time.
Mouse, I've been here for the last 2 weeks at time.
Look, our audience. She's been 2 weeks. It's been 6 years. But anyway, I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Not.
But I was talking about what is happening in Atlanta, talking about the weather and so forth, and I
Right.
was the Black History and why we do this. But before we do that, Jackie, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Hampton Clemens. I am the creator.
Okay, something has happened, and she is now frozen. I don't know why, but we're going to keep this thing moving. But she was basically introducing herself, saying she's out of South Florida. I don't know why we always have problems with her internet or her connections. I'm not sure what it is. We're going to try to figure this thing out because we don't like when we're interrupted when we're giving you information. But I do want to share that Black History Month didn't just start last week, folk. It didn't just start last week. And for a matter of fact, it was really started in 1915 by Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson is a noted scholar and so like self-taught. And he has a lot of publication, a lot of books out. And the most noted one is The Miseducation of the Negro. And so Black History Month started out as Negro History Week and then month. And of course, and then in 1976, it became Black History Month. And all presidents have acknowledged Black History Month since that time. But you know, when we talk about Black history, it sort of should be like, you know, our history is all the time. I mean, we're not just, and we should have a month to celebrate the contributions to America because Black folk is America. Then, you know, we are America. You know, we create this place. And even though we were brought here, some against our will, we help create everything about America. And from my perspective, um, it's sort of like we would not be America without us, without us. Let me see if I can get Jackie back in. Okay, okay, let's see. All right, we're still gonna wait till she gets in, but I'll keep going on with the program. So we're talking about Black history and the importance of it, and how Black history is not a event. It is a lifelong process. It's not just an event, it is a lifelong process. It's a lifelong engagement. It is, we're part of the whole creation of this. And some people would say, guess what? I don't think you are. I think you were just brought here and you did what you did, and the brains was behind making America what it is. And I agree that the brain was behind making America what it is, and we were the brain behind it. And, you know, I was watching a program the other day. It's called High on the Hog, and it talks about how African culture has impacted American cuisine. And I was just amazed. You know, I know about the foods, you know, we brought here, but I was really surprised about the golden rice out of the Carolinas, and the food that we brought here that has never really been talked about. So, but there's some more serious things that are going on other than just us bringing food to this country and making the country what it is. You know, I do want to share that the theme for Black History Month this year is Black health and Black wellness. Black health and Black wellness. So let me see if I can get her on here. Let me see. I don't see it. There she is. Okay. All right. Let's see. So, Jackie, are you back with us yet? Hold on. Okay, she got kicked out. Let's see if we can get her back in. All right. Well, Jackie, I'm going to say you may have to log back out and just start all over again because I'm actually allowing you to come in, but I'm not sure where you're blocked or what. All right, let's see what happens. All right, we're going to keep it moving. Hopefully she can get logged back in very soon. But this month's topic for us is um, about Black mental health. And people say that's kind of a broad topic. It's kind of a broad topic. But to me, it's not really broad because what happens, I'm still trying to get her in, folk. Um, it's not very broad. It's very broad. I'm sorry, it's very broad because we want to encompass a lot of things. We want to encompass a lot of things. So tonight's topic is Black mental health. Jack, are you on yet?
I'm on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but but your camera is frozen. I'm not sure. I'm gonna move on because we're spending too much time on this technical piece. All right. So
Right. Gotta work on that.
your camera is frozen. However, we can hear your voice. All right.
Okay.
All right. So tonight we're talking about Black history. Black got me all off track. Black mental health, and I want to share that Black mental health is really important to me, and it should be important to all of us. But not just Black mental health; it's really all mental health. But this is Black History Month, and I want to talk about why is it that Black mental health should be critically important to Black families, and
Uh,
we always start off with Jackie. You got a comment?
well, I want to say, yeah, I think really Black mental health should be important to society. You know, obviously we contribute and I heard you speaking about it earlier. our contributions to society are vast, and historical as well as present. So Black mental health really is a societal issue. But I think what you meant is that we need to start paying attention to it, and we need to address it in ways that we haven't in the past.
Well, there are a whole lot of stereotypes behind, this Black mental health, and you'll find that oftentimes, and I don't mean to speak for the whole group, of the all Black folk, but Black folk tend to be sometimes spiritual, and we say, listen, you take all your cares to the Lord. Yeah, guess what? I get that, but He created people for us to go to. He created those talented doctors and therapists for us to go to get information from, to help us. So one of the biggest problems we have, Jackie, is Black mental health and the stereotypes associated with it. The
stereotypes, and I think just plain lack of knowledge, ignorance. Yeah. There are behaviors that we think are just behavior when they're clinical. Yeah. Black mental health is a real health issue, like a physical health issue. And we're just kind of getting to that awareness. We're just getting to the I don't want to say party, because it's certainly not a party, but we're just starting to barely open the door to understand that this is not behavior. This is somebody, these aren't people who are down in their luck. This is a mental condition, it is a clinical condition. Therefore, it needs treatment.
Well, the thing about it is, and we'll get into a lot of that a little bit later on, but the whole point is that what Jackie was saying is that where many of us are not diagnosed,
exactly.
Many families and many children and families in which I treat, they are diagnosed and they're getting help. But it's a real problem when you don't realize that you probably need a diagnosis to get the help that you need.
Exactly.
And I want to get into some of the foundational information about Black mental health, so we can sort of share with you where we are. We're talking about depression in the Black community. Jackie?
Right. One of the most common Black mental health concerns is depression. And Dr. Miles, again, we think people are sad. Depression is real. While this condition can impact anyone, and that's something else we need to know, there is no stereotype for depression. Some unique factors can shape the impact of depression on the Black community.
Well, the thing about it is, my thing is why be ashamed and not acknowledge your depression when you're justifiably depressed? Hell, if I ain't got money coming in to pay bills, I'm going to be depressed. If I don't have adequate economic wherewithal to take care of my family, I'm going to be depressed. And people say, oh, don't be depressed, do something about it. Yeah, that's better said than done.
Right.
But guess what else? Just existing can cause depression.
Especially in the times that we currently exist in. Some may say the best of times, but certainly in many ways the worst of times. Families are going through major crisis, and our community is, as always, more affected than others.
And people are going to always say, you pull out the Black card. I ain't got to pull out the Black card. The Black card stays out.
The Black card was pulled on us.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's really about going to a job and people get promotions over you, cause depression. People, you're doing the same job other people are doing, they make more money, can cause depression, cause anxiety, feeling marginalized. Are you with me?
Yes. And very often, how we approach each other, Black on Black interaction and the historical effects of that and how it plays out in today's society. All of these things cause depression. And we need to know that it's not, again, a mood or a feeling. It's a very real situation.
Well, we're going to try to get into a part about how did slavery impact it. I'm not going to do it right now. We're going to get to that part of it. And we're going to get to does it impact folk? There are about 19 million people struggling with, now we're talking about one diagnosis, just depression. 19 million. But Black folk are overrepresented in that number. And
overrepresented in negative situations.
I want to share this with you. It's not just depression. It's in most mental health areas, Black folk
are overrepresented
in those areas.
And again, we have to add that that's to some degree because we're not treating, you know.
Well, Jackie, I want to say we're not treating, but I'm also going to say that it's systemic. The things
Absolutely.
that happens to us, they're systemic. And I know you experience this as a Black female. I know what I experience on a daily basis. I mean, just driving, the fear of being stopped by an officer and not sure I'm going to live through that situation.
Constantly.
And the question is, oh, well, y'all need to get over that. Who is y'all?
How do we get over it?
And how do you
How
get
do
over
you not worry when your child leaves the house and get in the car? And in our society, unfortunately, we don't know, as you pointed out.
And I think we're talking about driving safely and not being stopped. But the bigger issue is police brutality.
And it's part of a bigger situation where living in this skin comes with certain factors in life that we cannot control, and these things can cause depression.
Well, we're living in a skin that the larger population simply doesn't like. And I'm not trying to put all non-Blacks in one category, but our experiences show us that.
Right.
Experiences.
Every day.
So it's not a feeling I'm feeling. I'm talking about experiencing. And it's kind of interesting. I saw a presentation, Jackie, recently when the person asked the question, would any, and it was a multi-ethnic audience.
Okay.
And the question was, would any of you all like to be treated the way Black folk are treated?
That should have been obvious.
And no one stood up.
Of course
but the
not.
problem is, now that no one stood up, everybody's aware of how Black folk are being treated.
Of course.
That is the
even
issue.
those who don't want to acknowledge it, especially publicly, they know there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dr. Miles, I want to connect that to when we talk about, and I know we're going to get into it more later, people do not understand how African Americans or people of African diaspora living today bring up slavery, because the first thing they're going to say is, but you were never enslaved. But that's when we don't understand our society was enslaved, and we still live in a society that is wrapped in that and wrapped in this dual system,
Well, Jackie, but we're going to talk about that duality of slavery. And what I mean by that is that the emotionality, the abuse, the trauma is generational.
It's generational.
No one did a trauma therapy after the slaves were released. There was no trauma therapy.
There was no whole lot of things. There was no assistance. People don't even understand, don't know what that transition was like. It was literally, okay, you're on your own now. And truth be told, we went into another form of slavery called sharecropping.
Well, before we go there, because that's progression. I want to stick with the rudiments of slavery. I want to stick with what happened and how that became generational. And I want people to understand that it is generational. I want them to understand when you're talking about being abused and how do you get through it. We have problems right now, Jackie, with children who've been abused from an early age. At age 5, without treatment, they still suffer up to 18 and 20 years of age. Now, when you talk, let me just finish this point. When you suffer for that long, Jackie, then you're raising children. So you raise your children in fear. Are you with me?
Absolutely.
And then their children get raised with fear and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that they're not even aware of.
Exactly.
That we call precaution, but the bottom line is that trauma is passed from one generation to the next.
Exactly.
And for those of us who are aware, and anyone who's really looking, you can see that within the African American community.
Jackie, you can see how people, not just people, Jackie, today, how parents, raise their children in fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Parents telling their kids, I don't want you to go outside and play because, you may get shot or killed. Or I don't want you going downtown with those other folk because they don't like you. I'm talking about in 2022.
Things that we have to, they're right, things that are being said to children in 2022 based on the color of their skin and the precautions they have to take based on the color of their skin. Absolutely.
So when you talk
And
about,
anyone who doesn't believe this, only thing I can say is that you're not around parents, you're not around children. You don't know.
well, you've heard me talk about this for quite some time. I always say that when a trauma occurs, you stop growing emotionally at the point of the trauma. So if I go back to slavery and say that slavery was a traumatic events for Black
200 years of
question,
trauma.
it was not the comments, it was never treated. So therefore,
In any way.
it's passed down from generation to generation to generation. So Jackie, what we're doing, we're connecting past with our
Present
Black
behavior.
mental health today.
Present mental health. Exactly.
And we're trying to make it make sense to folk.
Because truth be told, we are just in a place where we can recognize it as a mental illness, or the absence of mental wellness.
Right.
We're at the beginning of saying, hey, this behavior is not quote unquote normal. This person is not just quote unquote crazy. There is a mental condition going on that causes certain behaviors.
Well, Jackie, I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure you got this right here, but the theme for Black History Month this year is Black Health and Wellness.
Oh, no.
Wellness. And what they're doing on national level is actually acknowledging all those folk, who actually were those people who provided services and who were indentures of medicines to make sure that we are in good health and so forth. But Jackie, as you began to think about mental illnesses, and people want to say that I ain't mentally ill. When we say mental illness, we're talking about not you, we're talking about the behavior you have. All right. So Jackie, it's kind of interesting that people today, families today, don't know why they feel the way they feel. They don't know why they're depressed. They don't know why they hear voices. They don't understand why they have these psychoses. They don't understand why they have these fears. I mean, and Jackie, they're not making excuses, because the greater population would say, "Oh, get off your tail. You're just making excuses."
They're afraid. They have internal fears, and as you pointed out, Dr. Miles, some people maintain or try to function with these fears for decades.
Jackie, it's
decades. They're trying to just quote unquote be normal, operate in spite of them. So it's a very, very real situation. I had a friend who I had a friend who recently started taking medication for anxiety, and she said she just had no idea that just wasn't her regular personality. That she had a choice of feeling. And she said she saw two medical professionals. They both asked, have you ever taken anything for this? And she said that's what made her think, oh, is this something that I can take something for? I just thought it was my personality. And this young lady's 36 years old. And now that she's taking medication for anxiety, she says it's just a new world.
But Jackie, but part of our mental health today, and part of our existence is not just what happened in slavery, but compounded by socioeconomic status, compounded by additional abuse from family members, through poverty.
Who aren't well and who are, acting out and abusing other members. Right. Compounded by a non-level playing field professionally, socially. So just compounded, and that's a good point to make. It's not just the psychological effects that are still very present. It's compounded with what we are experiencing every day.
So, Jackie, just ask ourselves this question. Think about this right here for a second, which causes anxiety. And you and I talked earlier today. We said, like, how are we going to get through this tonight without being emotional about it? But it's almost impossible, and we can't cover everything. But Jackie, I think what we're trying to do, we're trying to paint sort of a picture for our viewers on Black mental health, where it kind of like started from, where we are today.
You know what we're really trying to do, Dr. Miles? We're trying to make sure that, you know, the audience doesn't brush it off as, do we really need to talk about that? Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Like, we're really sitting here trying to give enough facts for people to understand this is real. I would be surprised if there's anyone on with us who does not have someone in their family who suffers from anxiety, certainly depression, who doesn't know of someone who has taken their own life. So it's real. And that's what we've really been trying to get across to the audience, I think, for the last 25 minutes.
What I tell folk, though, if you don't know anybody, then it's you. If you don't know anybody who's going through those kind of things, you know, it's you. And what I tell my clients is that what I want you to do, I want you to normalize it into your daily life so you don't see it as an illness. In other words, you learn how to manage it. Are you with me?
Right.
Because oftentimes when we have these diagnoses, people say, oh, something wrong with me. Well, guess what? There's something wrong with all of us. And right. I think if I was diagnosed when I was younger, I'd be ADHD. I'd probably be more hyperactive.
I know for a fact I would be, and I self-diagnosed, and I tell everyone that you know, my behaviors are just right in line with it, you know, even as an adult. So absolutely.
So those who just started to joined us both on Facebook Live and on our Instagram, our topic tonight is Black mental health. And folks, we're going to be dealing with this for the entire month. We're going to break it down to children.
And it's going to be very uncomfortable at times, you know, as Dr. Mouse was just saying, this is not an easy topic, but we do feel it's a very important and necessary topic. We, like all the rest, but this one, you know, we're all hearing about the more public situations or cases of people, individuals who have taken their lives. And we need to bring this home. We need to be aware. We simply need to be educated about it. We need to be watching all our family members and ourselves.
We're talking about a Black health, and let's just move quickly to the area of suicide in the Black community. And what's so interesting about this, Jackie, and it's interesting, but it's frightening, and I'm going to like put this into perspective for us a little bit, is that the suicide rate is kind of amazing among Black children ages 5 to 11 has increased significantly since 1993. When it was the 14th leading cause of death then, it's now the top 10.
And you know, let's pause for a moment and talk about, we said 5 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
A 5-year-old taking their own life, and an 11-year-old. We're thinking, you know, I think the average person thinking, well, you're not even old enough to have a problem.
Right.
You know, so again, we're not talking about those teenagers who get anything. We're not talking about young adults. We're talking 5 to 11-year-olds. That, again, should be an indication for us that this is a real situation that needs to be treated.
Let's talk about, like you mentioned, that little 5-year-old area. What does it look like? Kids who don't like themselves, kids who think they're different, kids who think their parents don't like them, parents who are abusive to their children. Are you with me?
Family dysfunction is a big issue in our communities because the absence of mental wellness. Abuse is far too common and prevalent in families.
Jackie, talk about the abuse part. Like, is it only physical abuse?
Oh, absolutely not, which is a very good point to raise. You know, we can all be aware of physical abuse, but I don't believe that we are as aware as we need to be about emotional abuse.
Verbal?
The psychological, the verbal. These things can sometimes do far more damage than physical. Physical wounds can heal on their own a lot of times. Mental wounds and damage don't heal at that rate, and they typically don't heal on their own. So abuse is both physical, mental, verbal, psychological, social isolation. We've talked about that increasing as a result of COVID, and people who would normally be socializing with friends or doing things who just can't do that as often. Homelessness is something we see a lot of, and of course that too is increasing. But as we just discussed earlier, and I want to sit here for a second, untreated depression or anxiety. I want to talk, Dr. Miles, if you would, clinically about anxiety. I think that's another one that we think is something that is controllable. Oh, get over it. Like, you know, just calm down.
Well, it's kind of amazing. Yeah, when I have many clients who have anxiety, and anxiety is you are waiting for something to happen and it doesn't.
This.
And I think about this: if somebody told you they're going to bring you a present, but they ain't tell you when,
You're just always waiting.
and you're always just waiting, you're just always just waiting, you're always just waiting,
You're
and
holding.
yes, and so Jackie, in that waiting, it creates anxiety, but it also creates a whole lot of other health conditions. Because when you're just waiting, it creates the energy in your body and hormones in your bodies that overreact.
Adrenaline flows differently.
I mean,
Now that's when you're waiting on something positive.
right,
You know,
exactly.
okay? Imagine when you're not waiting on something positive.
Well, I would tell you, I'm treating several clients now for health anxiety. And the health anxiety is when I have been told something is wrong with me, and I start thinking it means death.
Right. Right.
And every minute I get this pain, I gotta go to the hospital. It's health anxiety. And or if you get a medical diagnosis and you just become focused on that, you almost stop living. You just
Right.
think on that diagnosis. So I'm teaching people how to manage whatever they're hearing. And the word is catastrophizing, not to catastrophize, not to see everything as a catastrophe. But I want to move on because I know that our time is going to be limited and we're just running out of time like I don't know what right now.
Always.
Jackie, I want to talk about the exposure to violence. Now,
Right.
Jackie, we don't see that as an illness, but I want to share this with you though. I want to share that when children are exposed to violence, I consider that one of the indicators for trauma.
Right. And Dr. Miles, yes, definitely with children, we know this. I want to add that we can get exposed to violence through our television sets. I mean, I don't know who it's said, and sometimes children are being exposed to this. Now, we're also talking about children who live in communities where violence is a regular part of their experience. And let's not forget there are children who go to schools where violence is a regular part of the experience. So
Well,
to think that that's not going to have an impact.
well, you're talking about the violence. I'm talking about fighting with knives. I'm talking about guns. I'm talking about seeing people being shot. And if you don't believe me, just talk to kids, about, and Jackie, I'm not minimizing television. They ain't got to watch it on television. Some kids go in their front yard and see it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And there, some kids go to school and see it.
Right. So the point is, how do we stop this insanity? In Georgia, as I speak, Jackie, I'm not sure they've gone home yet, but we have some legislators right now, because session has begun. There's one, I think, a legislator who has presented a bill that states that everybody should be able to carry a gun.
Can you imagine that?
And well, I mean, it's being debated. I mean, at this point, so we have this societal, I'm going to call it a norm, but I'm going to say it's abnorm, that says it's okay to have these things. But when you look at the community that's being more affected by it, is
of course
representation of Black folk.
Right. Carrying a gun and how you use that gun are the issues. And I certainly hope that the legislature has enough sense to know that that's just not a good idea.
Well, I'm not gonna say anything about that.
On that, huh?
But I also want to stay on this realm just for a while, dealing with suicide. And Jackie, we cannot minimize, I keep using that word a lot, the effect that racism has on our mental health.
Well, and especially when suicidal attempts among Black adolescents, as our data is showing, have risen by 73% since 1991. Okay, I would understand if we're talking 20%, you're talking 73%. And yes, we do understand that we're talking about, 10 years or what have you, but 73% over any time span is far too much.
But we're talking about both systemic and non-systemic racism, including abusive policies that increases the frequency of mental health issues
in
in
our
the,
communities. Mm-hmm.
when you talk about mental health, the word I always use when my clients is, what are the triggers? What caused you to have anxiety? And I'll talk about anxiety. What caused you to have depression? Like, what are the triggers? Is it home? Is it, I call it automatic negative thinking. Is it, what is it? And when I found what the triggers are, it's kind of amazing that when parents and children understand what causes the anxiety, of course, it's called root causes, they're much better able to manage it.
Right.
And check out, let me paint this picture. So if we don't understand the root causes of some of our behaviors, is slavery and racism, we are not able to handle it.
We're not able to treat it effectively. We're not able to treat it effectively. Absolutely.
So, Jackie, I want to thank our audience for actually doing a whole lot of texting in our chat box, and we knew this was going to be a very interesting topic for us. And Jackie, we have reached a point where we're not apologetic anymore to talk about.
Finally,
right?
Mm-hmm. We know we're bringing some difficult topics, but I can't think of any topic that we've ever discussed that was not crucial and important in our communities, in society. So it's just one of those things has to be done.
It has to be done. Not only has to be done, but Jackie, it's so needed. When we talk about, Jackie, I think you mentioned about suicide in that 73%, but what I didn't see you cue in on
for Black boys.
Suicide. Did you say that?
For Black boys, no.
At 122%, Jackie.
Meaning it's doubled. More than doubled.
Attempted Black boys
taking their lives
has increased by 122%.
And I wish I could say I've never heard of it. I haven't seen any. I could name cases for you. Teenagers, prime of their lives. I mean, you can't even begin to ask the question of what and why. It's just unfathomable, but it is real.
Jackie, Black youth under age 13 are twice as likely to die by suicide
than their white counterparts. How is that so when we're only 13% of the population? How is that so?
No, not only how is it so, we don't tell them why it's so, how it's so. Socioeconomic oppression.
Right. That's the word. Because we're overrepresented when it comes to oppression and oppressive elements of society. So that's where a lot of it comes from. Absolutely. You're right. We can answer that.
But you know what gets me, Jack?
And it says so here, Black suicides rates, including encounters with systemic racism, police brutality, as well as a disproportionate rate of Black families affected by COVID. This is where these numbers are coming from.
Jack, well, question. Why is it everybody wants to sweep racism under the rug? Yeah, what is politically correct about that? It's wrong. It's just...
the only thing you can point to is that it's painful for the other side.
Okay, don't go there, please.
It's just, what else, could it be? It seems painful to the other side.
When you say that, I get into their rationale for not wanting to teach critical race theory in the schools. It's painful for the other side, but it's killing our side.
Our side. So that's okay.
So we're not important enough.
So I cannot be in pain. I need, you to continue to be oppressed. I need to, protect myself.
So our mental health is not important because we ain't got no sense, no how.
Among some other stereotypes.
I just, it's just very, no, it ain't difficult. Look what I'm doing. I'm struggling to try to be correct. And in the struggle, guess what? I'm causing my own anxiety. I'm causing my own suppression of thoughts. So
exactly. And that's what we do. And these again are the psychological effects, because we don't even get to talk about our pain because, we're not allowed to say we have pain. We're not allowed to say that the system is, oppressive. We're not allowed to say there's a difference in how people are treated based on the color of their skin in a post-racial America. We're
But
not allowed. However, televisions are constantly showing us that it's us. And I have to add this in, and it's a little off topic. I always wonder, why do accidents always happen with people of color? Like, do they ever have accidental shootings of other people ever? Like, do you accidentally get scared of anyone else? And if that alone does not show you that the psychological effects of slavery, and by the way, we don't mean that that's one-sided. We're not the only ones suffering from, the remnants of a system of enslaving humans. They are also still suffering from the remnants of a system of enslaving humans and fighting to get back there, by the way.
well, Jackie, I see one of our viewers said it's a tough pill to swallow for folk. I just think
Push a man
it is a tough pill to swallow, and I think part of
on
our
both sides.
in the United States is that we want to avoid it. Not we, people want us to avoid it. It's called avoidance behavior. And what avoidance behavior says is that you get some temporary relief, but when it comes back, it's going to knock you off your butt.
And also, Dr. Miles, there seems to be this thing where those who are oppressed feel like they should be ashamed of having been oppressed.
Because of psychological slavery. If your parents tell you, I want you talking about that, that's in the past, move forward, because things ain't going to change.
And hence the mental illnesses start to occur. It's a very tricky situation.
It's generational. And the thing we should not negate, we should not forget this piece of it. And that is what causes mental health issues. The larger piece of it is socioeconomic depravity. In other words, I cannot make enough to take care of my family, so we're suffering. I gotta live in places where guns are. I gotta live in places where, and no one should live there, especially no children should live in communities where people are shooting at each other. And but then, Jackie, you hear, well, they ought to do better. They just killing themselves. I get so sick of hearing that. I said, do you say that if a person's in a hospital, they should stop getting cancer? They should stop
cancer treatments, right? They need to cure themselves. But again, Dr. Miles, we're not, and I don't know how to get us there. I hope this conversation becomes part of it.
It ain't gonna get us there. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you.
That's why I said part of it.
I'm trying to be.
We don't get that this is a situation, societal in many ways, very prevalent, out of our control in many situations, but that we are living with those. I don't know how to say it. How do you address living with something that you don't even know you're living with?
And which means that you've normalized the behavior.
Right. You've normalized it.
And there are many young people, and it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. It's many young people, Jackie, who think where they live is just normal and they'll never have anything better.
Right. There's a very good question in the chat about the divide among people of color, and that, we talked about that, and we probably have to do another show on it. But I think that's all part of the psychological conditioning in terms of why it has increased. And again, combining that with the fact that we don't seek help. We're not identifying these things for what they are. Because, and I had this question too, if you don't like, and I do know people of color who don't like Black history, are we identifying that as self-hate? I mean, you are Black, you don't like your history. Can we say that that is a form of self-hate? But very often we know that there are people who don't believe it's a form of self-hate. They call it a preference. I have a preference not to care about, I guess, themselves.
I tell you, I don't use this very often, and I don't care who it offends. It's ignorance.
Of course it is.
All right.
It's a lack of knowledge.
Anyone who is not interested in their culture, it's like committing genocide.
It is committing genocide, and it's interesting you mentioned that. I was watching a news show, and they were covering some issues that are going on in the Jewish community, and they were talking about the Holocaust. And once again, this person said, we must teach it in order to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Jackie,
They understand that what you forget, you are doomed to repeat. And there is an effort to ensure that we never discuss 200 years of enslavement.
I need your help for a second. Now, I don't know how to pin these things because you've got some great comments. I want you to read some of them. So
Okay.
I want to thank Miss Queen for being back. We've missed you. So I'm glad you're back on. Jackie, you want to read some of these comments, these focus?
Yeah, let me get some of these. I'm trying to roll Miss Queens down, but I have one of them. It says racism has been around a very long time, and my ancestors of my parents did not commit suicide. Suicide was very low. So why has suicide increased among young people?
I'll answer that for you. Because they're not built the way we were built. Because we're not taught them resiliency, and we're not taught them purpose, and we're not taught them they have a reason to live.
And we're not taught them that, you know, this is temporary and there is better tomorrow. We don't teach them that. And society is certainly not teaching them that, because what's in front of them every day, right, is just today. And what's in front of them every day is shown as some form of perfection. And that doesn't exist.
I got to go here now a little bit now. Yeah, I try to stay away from this a little bit. But they don't also believe in a higher being who got them. They don't believe there's a God that you know that steers them and that really protects them. And that's what got us over. A belief
Our faith
that a higher being was.
And I want to add, Dr. Miles, I think sometimes they lose faith in that belief. I think many may have been raised with it, but they can lose that faith when they get to that point. And that's it. When you start to lose your faith, when you start to not believe, because they say, and Dr. Miles, you would know better than me, that, you know, this is the absence of hope.
Yeah.
Hope and an understanding that there is a better tomorrow.
Jackie, did you read this one? It says, it's from perspective, I think. It says, it's generational and it's dismissive. When the other side decides to hold themselves accountable for the actions of their ancestors, we'll be able to move forward as a country. Well, we're going to sit still for a while.
Well, I got news for you. Yeah, we will never move forward as a country.
But the point is well taken.
Point is well taken. But I think we, for our wellness, we need to understand that they're accountable. They don't have to acknowledge it. History is you know, factual. History is history. It's amazing, you know, how people will try to rewrite it. And we understand who's rewriting it, the same people who are rewriting January 6th. So we get that, but we have to get that. Most importantly, we have to know for ourselves. We have to be readers. We have to teach our children to be readers. As Dr. Miles pointed out, we have to teach them what perseverance means, what, you know, this too shall pass. We have to give them the tools to hold on.
Well, you know, part of that history, and I'm sure many of our viewers, both on Facebook and on Instagram, and Penny Rushing, I see your comments. Thank you, we appreciate that. And I'm glad you said you never knew some of this stuff. It's very enlightening, and that's the beginning.
That's our purpose, yeah.
But the key to all of this is we not necessarily hold the other people accountable. We must hold ourselves accountable for being able to tell the story and talk about, and not from a derogatory point of view that says, like, guess what? All the crap we went through, and we're still educated. You know, we still made it through these 400.
And still we rise.
And we're
the other thing we have to remember, we were never told by the other side. Never. We were always told at the kitchen table. We were always told in the family circles. We were always told with the books that were banned in public schools. So why do we have this expectation today that, you know, they're going to tell us anything? They will not. Honestly, if you were on the other side, would you be talking about it? I mean,
I think, you know, I think from another perspective is that, you know, our brothers and sisters many of them are hopeless. They don't know what to do, and they don't know what to talk about, because, you know, they're in this daily hustle, and they've normalized this struggle. You know, they've normalized this struggle, and they tear the kids. Guess what? It's going to always be this way. And I keep saying, without struggle, there's no progress. So you ought not be struggling forever. You know, and so the key is, what are you thinking Bible says, so as a man thinketh, so is he. So what are you doing, and what are you teaching your children
How are you consciously countering
so the
that?
next generation
Right.
doesn't go through what you're going through? Just by the color of their skin is going to be enough.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
But
that,
control that access, that entry point to your mind, which is your eyes, right? The entry point is your eyes and your ears, their eyes and ears. And you need to exercise some control over what's entering.
I had a person, Jackie, who said this, and I just hope that it doesn't come across the wrong way, but I really don't care. I'm just going to share what they shared. But it goes to the intensity of race. The person said, I don't feel sorry for poor white people because it's just a waste of white skin. So what
Mm.
they're saying is that by your mere whiteness,
Whiteness, you have a privilege that you've wasted. I'm sorry.
that's,
I assume that's what you were getting to because it just
that's
seems so
exactly.
obvious. So by your mere whiteness, you have a privilege that you've wasted.
You know,
And
now there are many people, Jackie, you're going in and out, but there are some people who don't want to admit that they have an advantage. There is an advantage. There is an advantage. And the reason I'm sticking on racism, folk, because racism is going to be the foundation of black mental health. It's racism which fuels socioeconomic levels.
it's right. It's racism that to me can fuel some of those fears and those anxieties about the future, about achieving, that nervousness that will I get there? We know, of course, that we can get there, especially when we know who we are and we address our issues. But I can't stress it enough. I know this broadcast won't do it. It is
Jack,
a medical condition.
it must be
We
nice.
need to treat it.
It must be nice to be able to drive and not let a blue light drive you crazy. It must
Yeah.
it must be nice.
Dr. Miles, wasn't that you posted something about take down the blue Christmas lights because I'm getting anxiety? You got me thinking concert.
No. It was something we posted. A guy posted on one of our neighborhood journalists, and I don't want to waste my time with this here because we're waiting, but I do want to share it. He said, I want the people who have Christmas tree lights to be very considerate because as I'm driving, I see all of these Christmas lights. I see all these blue lights.
Flash.
I have to have my weed. I got to throw my liquor out. I said, oh, Lord, that's way too much. But the point is, we are traumatized.
We live with this anxiety. We live with fear.
We're traumatized by a blue light.
I want to challenge people. Have you not driven by a police car, let's say that was parked on the side, and sat there and waited on it to come and waited for it to come after you?
If you
right?
black, you experience that. If you black, you experience.
Just not that you were speeding, but you're just waiting on them to come after you.
This, Jackie.
And
this,
again, we have to stay on topic. What we're saying is our topic is not racism, although it might be, but our topic is the impact of racism on mental health.
I want to mix the two of them together. It's racism which feeds the foundation for socioeconomic levels.
Right.
And those are the things.
Right.
Those are the things that fuels this negative mental health.
And the overrepresentation of people of color dealing with mental health issues.
Jackie,
a lot of it can be traced back, even in higher income situations. The absence of can be traced back to socioeconomic. It creates a certain fear of, and those things untreated just kind of fester. It's like a sore that never heals until you get help.
What I want to do, and I'm trying to squeeze this in, and I'm not going to be able to do it, but we got some of it. There are two things I want to mention very quickly, Jackie, and that one is that this racism bleeds over into education.
Mm-hmm.
And not only does it bleed into education, but it bleeds into our existence, where our bodies are always on edge. And Jackie, that's where the high blood pressure comes from, other than eating not
another area where we can't even explain why we're overrepresented. Why do too many Black people have high blood pressure?
Just ask the question.
Kind of a duh.
Why is it Black folk die from everything else more than other people? With COVID, COVID has affected Black folk worse than anybody else. Why is it cancer has affected Black folk more than anywhere else? Leukemia affecting Black people more than anywhere. I just
and listen what Alicia said, bleeds into health care. And
course.
listen, that's another topic, because then that health care is extremely difficult to get.
And Ms.
Let's
Queen,
talk about health care in our communities. That's a good point.
racism and the court system.
Court systems, yes. That's the point, people. It is all around. It's all around. We have to, though, start caring for, informing, paying attention, loving on each other. We can't do that enough, right? Go ahead.
Pusherman says, so I'm glad that it ain't because of fried chicken, high blood pressure. It is because of that.
Talking about, thank goodness. Yeah, that's funny, but it is because of that.
It's because of it.
No, it's the reason you eating that fried chicken,
right.
Because this is something else I experienced. Y'all check it out. Do y'all know there are some communities that don't have fried chicken restaurants?
Yeah.
You can't find them. You have to leave the community. Ain't no Popeyes, ain't no KLC, ain't none of that.
Well,
they don't have it. So hitting.
We're still dealing with Black mental health. And Jack, I think what you're kind of like touched upon is really it's stereotypes in marketing. It's just a whole lot of this conglomerate of things that causes poor Black mental health. A conglomerate. And right. I won't go to the conspiracy piece of it, but Jackie.
Well, look, Annalise already mentioned it. That's part of it, and this was factual. Matter of fact, this point that she mentions about this higher pain tolerance, people don't know this, but this was also kind of mentioned in one of the TV shows about how the models that they use to determine who can get treatments for a certain cancer have something to do with people's pain tolerance, and because they had a higher pain tolerance, they were indexed out of being able to qualify for certain treatments.
I want to leave this as a cliffhanger because we have 3 more minutes. This is a cliffhanger. Ready? If you talk about Masonian theory, he has the levels of needs. Right, my friend, none of those needs have been met by Black folk. None of them.
Wow.
They need to feel safe. How in the hell we feel safe? The need to feel loved.
When we have a hard time loving on each other.
But not a family, not by the general society, to be inclusive. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Everything that Maslow says creates this healthy person. Black folk ain't got it.
We got.
And it ain't because we did something to ourselves. It's because, ready? Racism and socioeconomic levels. All right.
And then they get upset. I have to throw this in. I'm an educator. And then they get upset when I try to convince our babies to go to schools that were created for them.
Okay. Jackie,
I gotta go.
I'll log off. I want to thank you all for coming on. And we have a very large audience tonight. Folks, every week we're dealing with Black History Month. We're dealing with the topic of Black mental health. And
we're dealing with the tough issues.
And so next week, I need you to be on time. And we're going to take you through this right here.
He's talking to me.
And I'll try not to be so, excited.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Get angry.
You're going to be excited. Thank you, Miss Queen. We felt it was a good, we were both very apprehensive. This is going to cut off on us, but we were both very apprehensive tonight. We weren't sure we were going to get through this topic. So you all really helped us to do that. You've brought on some wonderful points.
Okay.
And we appreciate it.
My son brought me this necklace. He went to Africa for 7 days. He went to Kenya.
And what did he bring me?
And I love it. And of course, I'm ready for our not just Black History Month, but our African History Month, and also celebrating our culture. Jackie, I got 2 seconds. We got to go because it won't be broadcast if we stay on longer.
Audience, you were wonderful. Please come back. We have to continue this conversation.
Jackie, see you. Thank you all so much. See you next week.
Good night.